Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Ayurveda with Noreen podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast, I ask that you follow me so that we can continue to cultivate greater awareness around the wisdom of Ayurveda and the awesome individuals who are bringing it out there worldwide. Today, I am joined episode 3 of 3 with John Broome, and John is a food product and recipe developer and now also a cookbook author. John recently released the new Ayurvedic cookbook titled Better Health Through Taste, Easy Transformation with Ayurveda. Mainly, John's goal with this book is to make Ayurvedic meal prep easy and accessible so that everyone can start to experience radiant health. John and I spoke a few weeks ago. He's currently in Mexico, and he is developing a Mexican version of his book. Developing authentic Mexican recipes using Ayurvedic principles. When we talked last time, John was just starting to integrate Mexican recipes. And so I asked him to join me today and give me an update on his progress. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much, Noreen.
Awesome. So I know, how long have you been in Mexico now? A couple of months?
40 days.
40 days and 40 nights.
Yes, and the thing is, you can't rush recipe development. If I said I've got to
Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that, John. What do you mean by that?
If I said I've got to have a new recipe every day, then I would be putting pressure on the people here and pressure on me. Because
very good point.
They go out. They went out on Saturday to the beach. Their mothers arrived for a month, and so you can't just do that. So I've been improved the Vata mix, and I've been experimenting with different.
This is the Vata spice mix.
Yes, as we discussed last time, because Mexicans are mostly Kapha Pitta, which is not usual for Americans, then the diet is culturally different, and certain familiar ingredients like onions, garlic, and tomatoes have been used in a lot of dishes, not all of them, but because of that been going on for a long time, their physiologies have become habituated, habitually adjusted slightly, so that their bodies do not have so many problems with chili, and those are hot spices. However, the family here includes...
Actually, you make a really great point from an Ayurvedic perspective, and that is that they're in a unique climate there, and that they're culturally, habitually, they are accustomed to spicier foods. They're accustomed to chili peppers. They're accustomed to onions and garlic. So even though some of those foods are used more sparingly in Ayurveda or with specific purposes in mind, that because there's a habitual use and custom, that they may be considered Ayurvedic for that particular cultural demographic, and their place.
Yes.
So, and that is an Ayurvedic principle for people to keep in mind. It doesn't give everyone a carte blanche and say, oh, I've been drinking 10 cups of coffee a day since birth, and I think I'll continue doing that. But there is some of that. If there's that cultural habituation, there's a little more flexibility and accommodation in Ayurveda for that.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And the body doesn't necessarily respond as negatively as well. It's been habituated to it.
Yes, the digestive system, the stomach has got used to it.
Yeah, and I actually love your other point that you made as well, in terms of for anyone who's interested in doing Ayurvedic recipe development, which we could certainly use more people in that field. helping people with their diet and their health. That when you are developing recipes, particularly in your case where you're living with a family or there's multiple families who you're preparing, you have a set of they're basically your taste testers.
Some more often than others.
Right. So you have to work around their schedule. And if you're rush, number one, we all know from practicing TM that the more pressured we are, the less that we accomplish.
Yes.
So if we can get into that more relaxed state, and we're working with someone's schedule as well, that the creativity and the evolution of the project is more organic.
Yes, and the first book took 9 months to produce.
Right.
So achieving something in a month and a half, or a month and a half or a bit more than that, is reasonable and understandable, especially when you've got this adjustment in the cultural habituation. However, I have managed to have some success with reducing sugar in desserts by adding things I've already used in the recipe book. And also the other thing is that some ingredients I'm not using because they're really hard to get here, like walnuts. They use pecan nuts instead. So it's.
I think you mentioned that you wouldn't know that unless you were there.
Yeah, well, you could look it up on the internet, but in practice, you're with a family. What you can buy in a 3-mile radius is what you really want to be using.
Right. Okay. So I think when we spoke, it was a couple of weeks ago. You were maybe 3 to 4 weeks into your recipe development.
Yeah.
So, and the purpose of our talk today, our discussion, our chat today, is essentially give us an update on your project. You know, what else you've learned, what you feel you've perfected, what you're still working on. So yeah, give us an update. Let me know how things are going.
Okay, so what I seem to have got quite well developed are the sauces, or we could call them chutneys, but they're not really chutneys you add onto the meal at the with There's sauces, a lot of them are sauces you put in the wrap. So last time we spoke, I had a wrap with tuna blended with some vegetables and some sauces that were the sauce, and then just some plain tuna in there as well, in what I'm calling a wrap, or which they could call a burrito. So that's worked really well, and I've made another version of that with mashed avocado in, because mashed avocado is very popular here.
Sure.
Which is good for vata and pitta, but it will be good for on occasions for a kapha pitta type.
Okay.
So
are these sauces that you're preparing, these burritos or these wraps, typically for lunchtime?
The lunch they have in the day is usually between 4 and 5.
I see.
They have breakfast at 11 or 11:30, which is often omelets for the children, and omelets with some meat in for the mother, or both of them, all of them. And then between 4 and 6 is the evening meal, and it's not to a very strict regimen at all here. Partly because they're not necessarily hungry, and partly because the mother might have got back late from a new work. She's an estate agent. She works in an estate agency. So
okay. So do they eat when they have their evening meal between 4 and 6? Are they having a a snack later in the evening as well, or?
No, that's it.
So it's 2 meals a day, essentially.
Yeah, they do nibbles as well, though. They'll nibble as
Oh,
well.
okay.
There's
All right.
two
Well,
main meals a day.
I think that's an important point is, Ayurveda says have your largest meal when the sun is highest in the sky, which is usually around noon. And also, Ayurveda discourages snacking between meals because of the Agni, the digestive fire, in terms of, you want to have the fire burning steadily at the time that you want to train your digestion to eat at certain times. And you can certainly do that with practice. But yeah, and oftentimes Americans are accustomed, and it's difficult for Americans that, and it's just in our culture that, you eat 3 meals a day and then you have your snacks. And so there's this constant plethora of food, this flow of food that actually dampens the digestion and the digestive fire. And certainly over time is not necessarily the healthiest way. But we've been so
much here.
Yeah, we've been so programmed. And so, for some people, 2 meals a day is great. For some people, and it gives your digestion a break. So that's a good thing to keep in mind as well. So,
and it's good for kapha as well.
Right. And so their breakfast at 11:30 or so is kind of like, that's really like our lunchtime. So, and is that when they're having their biggest meal, or is it between 4 and 6?
No, that's the breakfast.
Oh, breakfast.
The biggest meal is between 4 and 6.
All right. So getting back to your sauces, you have developed 2 sauces. You have this sauce that you use, you said, for like a tuna sauce.
No. Those were just 2 examples.
2 examples. Okay.
Yeah, but they were both for vata, but you can make a pitta version as well.
I see.
Just by changing the spice and lemon or lime.
Yeah.
That's another advantage with the.
So you said this. You've noticed that you had very good fortune in developing these sauces there. That they've been well received by the family who you're working with.
Yes.
Are there other sauces that you want to share?
Well, the way it's very easy to create one with a little difference that's suitable for all types. So vatas would have mashed avocado in, and tomato and garlic and onion. Pitta would have the pitta mix, and vata would have the vata mix. Pitta would have the pitta mix and less tomato, and you just put more pitta spice in, and you can put more lime in for pitta and a little bit. So what I'm basically saying is that it's very easy to alter the quantities of certain ingredients and make it good for most of them. Kaphas would have chili in, and vata and pitta don't. And that's one way, just with that, to make it much hotter, and kapha mix, which has got some chili in as well. And then you've satisfied that. And the other thing is, I don't know, I haven't got a lot of experience with other cultures, but in Mexico, there's less variety in the meals you would go out for than in some places in America. So what that means is that they're familiar with a reasonably small range of dishes in a family.
Okay. Right.
Which makes the job of a cookbook slightly more easy.
That's true, because you can have infinite. I liked what you just described in terms of these wraps and the various ways that you can accommodate each of the doshas by minimizing or including or shifting the spices slightly.
Yes.
So it's not an enormous project to, change it up for somebody who's kapha pitta versus somebody who's vata dosha.
Yes.
And in some ways, having those restraints of fewer ingredients, because they don't, they're not perhaps going to the market and buying daikon radish or, shiitake mushrooms, or, they're sticking with really what grows in their region and really culturally what they're accustomed to.
Yes.
And, when we work as chefs, when we work with constraints and limitations, it actually can fuel our creativity. And you can have infinite variations on, the same set of ingredients, really. So,
Yes.
yeah. And how about, we talked last time about any new lessons learned in the last couple of weeks about
Yes.
Mexican cuisine, about applying the Ayurvedic principles to Mexican cuisine.
Yep.
Any light bulbs going off for you?
Well, it was always the case, but I kind of overlooked it a bit. But the chili powder is not in the Vata mix anymore.
Okay.
Chili is it has the quality of fire.
Sure.
And
it's definitely incorporating the fire element. There's no doubt.
And air. Now, Vatas our Vatas are very airy already.
Yeah.
So they don't want more air.
Right.
So even though you've got something that's helpful for Vata, ultimately adding the air to it with the pungent taste isn't a good idea. So what I've done is I've increased the amount of ginger reasonably significantly.
Okay, so you have the heat without being pungent.
Yeah.
Well, there's some pungency to fresh. Well, it's not fresh ginger. Is it powdered ginger? Yeah, so that's not as pungent.
The recipe book includes fresh ginger, but the pittas, the Vata
spice mix, right? Okay.
Doesn't.
So you substituted the chili powder, ginger powder for chili powder.
We've taken out the chili powder and put the ginger in.
Right.
To a slightly less amount, but and that's the fine detail, yes. Than the chili. So that seems to have worked very well. So you've got more ginger and no chili in the Vata.
Mm-hmm.
And the other development is I just made yesterday a very successful chicken dish with some sweet corn and peas and some cream. Now, milk and cream don't have the same qualities in food. You can use cream, it won't separate out. So it's a popular dish here with the family, but they put the version that I made didn't have chili in, and the version they make here usually doesn't have chili in, but it's got the pitta mix, and it's really nice. It's really nice, and you put lime in and a little bit of fresh chopped cilantro, powdered cilantro leaf, and it's really nice. And it's going in the cookbook, and I'll make a Vata version with the Vata mix, and it won't be in kapha.
Right, because of the dairy. Yeah. And is that a dish that they typically make there, but you've incorporated Ayurvedic spices? Is that essentially what the differences have been?
Yeah, it's usually here once a week. They usually have that once a week.
Okay.
And
they enjoyed your version?
Yes, well, we had a certain situation when the mother had to go out, but the daughter liked it. The younger daughter liked it. And having had enough experience with the other two ladies, I know they're going to like it because
Right.
it tastes very similar to their original version.
Right. Now, what
And
about if somebody didn't want to use dairy? Do you have another version that another option for them?
you can, there will be ways to get non-dairy cream, but I haven't researched that yet.
Mhm.
And the other, sorry about that. The other development that I'm going to be working on later today is I've done this kind of thing before, so there's nothing new in all the elements of it, but there's something new in the mix. So there are a number of people in the area that do have kapha problems with sugar. So there are some people who are kapha pitta, but they
Right, and
have
they're
a
and
mild
they're
need
and
for
they're and
sugar.
they're watching their sugar intake.
Well, they would like to, but they're
Yes.
not doing so.
Okay.
No. Now, what I've used before is in a in a custard. One example is stewed fruit for a because if you're pitta kapha or kapha pitta, you're still going to like something sweet at some time.
Mhm.
And if you've got this interest in having sugar a lot, then you can replace the sweet taste with things that don't have refined sugar in. And one that I've used before is blended dates or blended raisins. So, custard with fruits is a popular dish in America, but I can make the custard with blended raisins as a sweetener instead of cane sugar and
Mhm.
vanilla and cumin and so it's cinnamon and nutmeg. Now nutmeg is slightly heating, so in these cases I would put more nutmeg in. And there's so I'm going to be exploring a range of desserts that are suitable, more suitable for kapha. And in America,
Are you soaking the raisins? Just a
yeah,
question. Do you soak the raisins?
the raisins first. But in England, there's a friend of mine who really likes rice pudding, and he's kapha pitta. So I make rice pudding for him with almond milk
Mm.
instead of milk. And the other, so that's an area where I'll be doing some development in the next couple of weeks, week and a bit. And the other, totally on a different topic, recipe adjustment, which might never be permanent, is anise, which is the star.
Sure, anise. Yeah, it's star anise is a spice. It's kind of it almost has a licorice taste in a way.
Yes, it does.
But
Now,
yeah, it's very nice.
uh, I have been unable to get fennel powder for pitta.
Okay.
And so anise or licorice are alternatives.
Mhm.
So 3 miles away, there's a kind of spice and to a grain store that isn't a health food store, but it's got quite a lot of ingredients that you might want to use, including anise. So I blended it finely and used it in the replacement for fennel powder in the cream and in the cream dessert, in the cream main meal, to make the cream with the
for the chicken dish, you mean?
chicken, sorry.
Right.
And it's just really good.
You like it?
Subjectively, it's a different flavor,
Right.
but it's still really nice.
Nice. I think the quantity with star anise, a little bit goes a long way. So it's nice as long as you keep it at a very minimal amount, but not, once you go over that minimal amount, it can be a bit overpowering. So,
right. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So it's figuring out what that balance is there.
Yes, and it's how much of that you put in. But obviously, when you've got other ingredients, they're going to have an impact on it. So
sure,
the cream.
It might also be nice as part of the powder. Once you take are you just buying the whole star anise and then grinding it into a powder?
Yeah, without the stem and grinding the powder.
Sure. So it might be nice as there might be a nice spice blend that you can create, maybe not for mass production, but for this particular dish, to enhance the flavor of the dish. That I like star anise when it's combined with other spices, not kind of the main event,
Yeah. Well, it's replacing the fennel in the pita
right.
mix.
Okay, I see. In the churna, in the spice mix.
In the spice mix. So it's got the other ingredients.
Nice. Okay, so there's other spices in it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yes. So and it worked really well. So there's what I'm going to be doing next is making about, I don't know, maybe 15 different burrito, or in the cookbooks called a wrap, dishes, because they are extremely familiar with them here, and they're very popular.
Nice. Yeah. It'd be fun to do an Ayurveda cookbook just on wraps for burritos and tortillas.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Because you seem to have a penchant for that, that you seem to enjoy it.
Are you still there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah. I only mention that because it seems to be a part of the culinary repertoire that you enjoy. Yes, burritos, wraps, tortillas.
Yes, it's popular here. It's common.
Right.
And,
yeah.
They use the smaller ones.
Right. The tortillas. Yeah.
Right, and they're available in packs of about 30 for less than $1.
Right. Okay.
And they sell them wrapped in paper at in the local markets.
Sure. Yeah.
And they fill them with simple things. So in one case, one of the two, mostly kaffas, who might be pitta kapha actually, has 5 of them with what's in it, and the other one, who's his brother, has 10 in one example. So they'll put something, not a lot
in one sitting.
In one sitting, 10.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a bit.
I know.
They are small, though. They are small.
They're less than 6 inches.
It's kind of like having tapas. It's kind of a mouthful. It's like a biteful or a mouthful.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. How about in the last couple of weeks since you started? You're there in Mexico about 6 weeks now. Is that right?
Just under 6 weeks, yes.
Okay. So now that you're in week 6 or week 7, how about challenges that you weren't expecting?
Me? Right.
Yeah, in your recipe development process, in the whole experience, challenges that. So if you could share a couple of challenges, I think that would be useful.
Okay. Do you know, I thought you were going to make up a challenge for me. I thought you have a challenge, you've got to climb a mountain and come back without any something. So challenging.
Well, we can give you an obstacle course. That there's no doubt. But yeah, I'm sure I don't have to create them for you. Life has a way of putting them in your path.
Yeah, I think the challenges are I have to try and get as much of a dish ready for people to eat, rather than make 6 different samples and say to one of them, try all these 6 samples and tell me what you think. Because
Okay.
there's not, it's not got that kind, that would be, although it's a reasonable idea, that would be a little bit demanding on them. So,
yeah, and
also
so
they might feel the pressure, you know.
that's true. So perhaps you were thinking that you were going to lay out a number of different variations on the theme, samples, and then get their feedback. That hasn't really been workable in practice.
No,
it's better just to prepare the dish that you like and you think works for them, and then see what they think. And it's just part of their meal, and you can just say, well, how did you like it?
Yes. And in America, I had 2 groups of people, one with 4 and one with 3. So over a period of a month, I'll do the lunchtime meal for one group and the evening meal for the other group. Now, because they don't have breakfast, I'm not attempting to, I do cakes, and I will be getting onto breakfast, but breakfast, usually one person will have their breakfast at one time, and 10 minutes later, the other person will have their breakfast, and half an hour later, the other person.
Yeah, you're not, so you're not focused on breakfast.
And then you've got the main meal in the middle of the day, or in the 4 to 6 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And on occasions, not all of them will be there, or and it wouldn't be right for me to say, I want to cook your main meal every day, because that's way too much demanding. And, you know, that's not an appropriate way to get feedback, because it's just not, it's impractical. But I was able to do that for 5 weeks in America, again, because I had 6 different people in 2 different groups.
Okay, so you weren't doing it. You were dividing that main meal among 2 different groups. So you were cooking one main meal for one of those groups every day.
I was, and I was doing the evening, which is often soups in there.
Right, and then you were doing the supplementary food, lighter. Okay. So you were able to get regular feedback.
Yeah, and I was able to get regular feedback, and they were significantly more familiar with Ayurveda.
Of course,
that wasn't
yes.
the issue. The issue was, did they like what I produced? So what that meant is, with easily twice as many meals in a period of time, and twice as many meals, that means 4 times as much trial and error feedback can be achieved in America compared to Mexico. So what is in effect a month and a half here in America would be in America, what is a month and a half?
You could accomplish that in half the time.
Yeah, it's quarter.
Okay, sure.
So I can get
Okay.
quarter slower. So
yeah.
But
so you're saying that one of the challenges that you've had in Mexico, just because of the numbers, that you're cooking for one family, that it's just been a slower process, and they're not familiar with Ayurveda, or not as familiar with Ayurveda as the people you were cooking with in the US.
Remotely familiar with
right.
Ayurveda.
Okay. So yeah.
But when they'd done the questionnaire, they identified with the type that they were straight away.
Sure. You have some idea of what their mind-body constitution is, their dosha, so how to prepare meals, what they need, what their digestion is, that sort of thing.
And there's someone who's new, who's staying for about a week here, who just arrived
Okay.
early.
Right.
And she did the questionnaire this morning
All right.
in Spanish, and she
Yeah.
immediately identified with the school, the type she is.
She
So
identified with what? The
the
score.
type
Okay.
that she
Right.
is
Right.
on the school, she's
Yeah.
Kapha Pitta.
Right. Okay.
And
So yeah. So that
she
she
liked
what?
the Kapha mix. I put the Kapha mix in a little bit of water for her, and
Yeah.
she liked it.
That's great. That's great feedback.
So
So so it sounds like in terms of challenges, and maybe this is good for those budding recipe developers out there. Um, is, first of all, it's been a little more challenging for you because you were cooking for multiple families in the US versus one family here. Lack of familiarity here with Ayurveda and the principles of Ayurveda. And there was something else you said, but now it's escaping me as well. Another challenge.
well, the other challenge is they only have 2 meals a day. No, well,
The
not
2 meals a
three.
day. So it's just taking longer for you to
Yeah.
unfold the process. And so that was perhaps a little unexpected, but
Yes, definitely
probably not.
unexpected.
Okay.
But the lack of familiarity with Ayurveda is not a problem, because
Okay.
when it comes to taste, you don't need to know.
Right.
If you're going to like it, you're going to like it. If you're not going to like it,
Right.
you don't like it.
Sure. And are you following up with your family who you're preparing meals for and recipes? How they're feeling the next day and whether what their digestion is.
No,
You,
I
okay.
don't follow up with them how they feel the next day.
Right.
I'm only focused on the meal,
Right.
and basically their task is, their basic question is, should it go in the cookbook? And I just need 2 or 3 to say yes.
Okay.
And that's enough, it's in the cookbook.
Right. So how many recipes do you have right now for the Mexican version of your cookbook?
About 20.
Okay. And what is your goal?
About 30.
You want to have about 30.
So I'm close.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So how much longer do you think you'll be there? And I know that's probably pretty open, but.
Probably a couple of weeks.
Okay. So what's your plan for the next couple of weeks? What do you hope to accomplish? What's unfinished? What challenges do you anticipate?
Right. The next 2 weeks are have written down precisely the ones that I've been doing so far. They're written down, but they're not in the format that they go in the cookbook.
Okay. So you want to finish. You have some basic notes regarding the recipes, but you want to get them in recipe format and make them more precise.
Yeah. And then the other is about 10 more recipes, and also ways to create sugar-free sweet items that people will want because they want sweet.
Right. Okay.
But not with cane sugar.
Right. Okay.
And the other is find a reliable source for fennel that I can use, because if I can't get it in the country, it's trickier to put it in the cookbook. But I also want to.
Are you going to try to find a reliable source there, or are you just gonna order it on the internet, or what are you thinking?
You can get it from Amazon, but if it comes from Amazon in America, it costs a lot more. And the other.
Or are you going to dispense with that ingredient because it's not readily available in the locale and just continue your substitutions?
Well, this is only the case for fennel, but that's the question. That's a definite question. But the other task I have is to find suppliers who can get the ingredients and put them in a pouch, because the cookbook will not survive unless people can buy the mixes off the shelf. It's like if you said, I've got this cookbook and half the recipes have got garam masala in, and you have to make it because you can't buy it anywhere, then the cookbook's going to lose its motivation for 98% of the audience, which are
So
familiar with putting a mix in.
sure.
Like
So
cookbook.
you're, as with your English version of the cookbook, these recipes are made with spice mixes that you are developing the Mexican version. You have the American version, the US version already developed, but you also want to be selling these spice mixes and have them readily available to customers.
In your pouch, buy it on a pouch, probably from Amazon to start with.
Right.
And then, your local hardware store, your local health food store.
Okay, right. Yeah, hopefully not your hardware store.
No, not your hardware store. That was more to do with that. But anyway, yes. So
okay. So you have work to do, in other words.
yes, it was never, the book is never going to work unless you buy the spice mix in a pouch, put it in your kitchen, pull it off the shelf and use a spoon to chuck it in, because that's how I've always done it. If I'm going to expect people to start mixing their everything, I mix a big amount of it and just keep using it. And then in America, I've delivered to 3 or 4 friends the mix that's suitable for them in a big jar.
Sure.
Because they're just not going to want to do it. Even people who are familiar with Ayurveda.
Right. Now, are you going to sell the cookbook with the spice mixes? Are you going to sell them as a package, or are these going to be separate?
That thought has not occurred to me.
Right.
But that's a thought.
Yeah.
Sell them as a package.
Yeah. Well, it would be one option to introduce people to the spice mixes. And awesome. Well, wonderful. Any words of wisdom, anything else you want to tell us from Mexico, John, to wrap up our part 3 of easy Ayurvedic cooking and part 2 of your Mexican Ayurveda experience? Yeah. Anything else that you want to leave with our viewers and listeners? I know you've changed your website, so let's get that out there.
Yeah. So I'm going to repeat what I've said before. Sure. Is that there are quite a lot of, in my limited experience, but I think it's likely to be the case because sweet things are big sellers here. Yeah. Is that there are quite a few kapha types here who probably have more sugar than they really would like.
So you're really focused on creating healthy desserts, or desserts that they're not using refined cane sugar, that there's going to be more natural sweeteners. So, yeah, and of course you want to make them appealing for the Mexican, your Mexican clientele, and so yeah, so that's quite a bit right there. Just
yeah,
that could be another cookbook, of course.
It could, but there's going to, it will be included in the Mexican version.
Okay, all right. Do you have any ideas percolating in terms of, I know you talked about custard, and obviously flan and custards are big in Mexico, but yeah, other desserts that you want to work on, that you want to perfect?
Well, you've got the stewed fruits, you've got the rice pudding, you've got you've got these semolina, which is often used in a dessert.
Yes.
And I've already got about 5 different rice pudding versions.
Okay.
One in the cookbook, one for kapha, but I think I'll want to be adjusting those, some of them, like I said, because it's quite possible that I want to reduce the sugar even for Vata recipes,
Sure,
because
sure.
even a Pitta Vata type who has too much sugar is going to have a gut bacteria out
Yeah.
of balance because
Sure. Well, yeah, the
doing
refined
great
sugar
sugar.
isn't, a regular diet of that isn't good for anyone, regardless
Yeah,
of dosha.
yeah,
So it's more than the taste, it's just the effect on our physiology and mind as well. So
yes. And the
awesome.
gut bacteria that love sugar
Right.
communicates to the brain saying want more sugar, and the brain thinks it's
And
them.
yeah, you make up a great point that it's highly addictive and just fueling unhealthy cravings. So
Yeah.
yeah, so awesome. Well, wonderful. And what is your new website? I know that you said you changed the URL. Is that correct?
Yes. It's
Yeah.
easyayurvedacookbook.com.
Okay. And do you have a copy of your the English version of your cookbook to hold up? And did you bring a copy with you, or
I do.
if
Well,
not, that's okay.
no, I do. This one I bought from
Okay.
Amazon and
Right.
delivered here. And
Awesome. So this is the
yeah,
cookbook, Better Health Through Taste, Easy Transformation with Ayurveda, the cookbook by John Broome. You can find it on Amazon. You can also probably find it on his website, or a link to Amazon on his website.
and that's
Um, awesome. And it's available both in print, and is it available electronically as well?
yes, the Kindle version
Okay.
is $7.99 and the printed version
Right.
is $18.99.
Awesome.
It's
And if
also
anyone wants to,
available in other countries.
right, it can be shipped. It's not limited by
Yeah, if you buy it in
geography.
England, it comes
Sure.
from Amazon in England, gets there the
Right.
set
Of course. Yeah.
2 days
And
later.
if anyone wants to reach out to you, John, directly, is there a good way for them to do so? The best way?
Yes, there's a form on the website. You
Okay,
can
so
straight
contact
away,
form.
yeah, contact me form. I'm happy to
Great.
have any feedback, any ideas, any suggestions, and in a month or two, there'll be selected new recipes on the website. Just a
Awesome.
few.
Yeah.
One example is there's quite a few spaghetti dishes coming out from Mexico because spaghetti is popular.
Okay. So that's awesome. So you welcome feedback on the current cookbook that's out there. And have you been getting any feedback from readers?
Well, I haven't been promoting the book
Okay.
until yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So it's not been selling and also until a week ago, there was still a few little adjustments, like
Glitches.
I said, with the font size for the 6.5 cups or
Sure.
3.25 cups. Then, so
Sure. There were some minute details that you needed to adjust.
I
Awesome.
haven't been trying to
So,
promote it
okay.
until yesterday.
Right. All right. So awesome. But you welcome feedback. You'd love to hear from people. You want to see what their experiences. You'd love to
Absolutely.
improve things. And
Yes.
when you're developing recipes, how about 3 words to describe yourself as a recipe developer?
Um, Enthusiastic, determined, and flexible.
I love that. Enthusiastic, determined, and flexible. Awesome. We can apply that to much more than recipe development. So
Okay.
awesome, John. John, thanks so much for joining me today, the Ayurveda with Noreen podcast.